We move on to the New Orleans Saints here, and this team is really interesting. They're dealing with a lot. I mean, they finally were able to get rid of the Sean Payton contract there. They got some draft capital. I think when you look at everything in regards to the Saints, it's been kind of weird, right? Like they don't have a ton to show for in the recent history. They don't have a ton to show for it, and you can say whatever happened in the Rams playoff game has something to do with it, but I think it goes beyond that. They've had a lot of talent, and they just don't have enough W's to show for it. And so I think you see Dennis Allen, who, of course is the head coach there. And, they added, guys like Pete Carmichael and Joe Woods and, just kind of built out that coaching staff and, added guys in this draft that I like. But this is another interesting draft class where Brian Breesy, who you had mentioned in our mock draft, he's somebody that's, physical. He has some pop behind his pads. I mean, the guy, he's a fighter, in the trenches. I mean, really. And then, Foskey, he looks the part. You ever hear the term looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane? It's not really like exactly that, but I feel like the guy is perfectly built for the edge defender position, whatever that looks like as a 3-4 outside linebacker, however you want to use him. But I just don't see him, playing like how he should on tape. And I think that's fair. And then Kendre Miller, I really like that pick because what he's going to do is he's going to make sure that you got Jamal Williams, who's a touchdown magnet. He had 18 last year, red zone guy. When you get in the ball, you get at the goal line, give it to Jamal, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just no questions asked. So we don't know about the whole Alvin Kamara situation. We don't know how many games he's going to miss, if he missed games. But if he does, Jamal Williams can be that guy. But I think Kendre Miller has a shot to start. And, they look more at Jamal Williams, they want to save him for those short and intermediate, gains. So I like the Kendre Miller pick. Saldiveri out of Old Dominion is a guy that I think they like there. Add some depth behind a really stout offensive line. You have guys like Cesar Ruiz and Eric McCoy, Ryan Ramchick, Andrus Pete, and Trevor Penning, who they spent a first-round pick on in 2022. I like that pickup. Jake Hayner's a guy we've discussed before on one of our shows. We talked so much draft this offseason. It was like, I don't even remember which, but yeah, Jake Hayner, fun fact here. I'm sure you probably already know, he's going to the Saints. He's going to be playing with Derek Carr, and Derek Carr went to Fresno State. So, it's another one of those, Matthew Stafford, Stetson Bennett. Then you have a Jake Hayner, Derek Carr. And I think that gets over the big hurdle is, quarterback, clear QB1. How is he going to operate with the backup? So that's what I'll say about that. Jordan Howden was a solid pick. He helps you in the 5th round. A.T. Perry was a fantastic pick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly who I've been talking about him. I've been singing his praises. My wide receiver 3 in the entire draft they got in the 6th round. So I might be wrong on him if he fell to the 6th round. NFL talent, maybe NFL talent's wrong too. We'll see. But I really like the pick in the 6th round, Cam. And overall, I'll let you throw yours in. But I'm gonna give the Saints a B- because they found value in Hayner. They found value in Perry. I like the Miller pick, and I think Breesy is going to start day 1.
Okay. Yeah, Jake, I like it as well. I'm going to go with another B as well for the Saints. With Breesy, I mean, we talked about it, Jake. He was one of my guys as well. Just his pass rush ability, the way he can pick and wrap. I mentioned that some of his better rushes are when he's able to wrap and make moves. Even watching the draft and seeing him, they talked about just his leadership ability, right? When he was one of the better players coming out of high school and as a freshman at Clemson. And so, they talked about just his leadership ability and his ability to get everyone together and galvanize his team. So it's really cool to see him there. Cam Jordan, I'm sure, is going to be super happy to have a guy like him with him. And then they doubled down with Isaiah Foskey. So Jake, you said look like Tarzan, play like Jane. We don't want that to happen. I know they talk about sometimes his pass rush numbers, his sack numbers. He had a nice amount of sack numbers, but his ability to pass rush and his production, it didn't really match up, right? His numbers were high, but his effectiveness and his impact as a pass rusher wasn't as high. So I'm sure he's going to learn a lot from Cam Jordan. And that's the beauty, right, of drafting guys like this is they can develop, they can grow. And I think that's extremely important. Kendre Miller, we talked about our guys, right, here on Off the Edge, and he was one of my guys as well. Coming out of TCU. Jake, one thing I do know is my man was in the college football playoffs, right? And that experience is invaluable. We always talk about the UGA athletes and how they're champions and how they're going to, bring that much more value to their teams. I do think a guy like Kendre Miller is going to do that as well. Go into the Saints. They need everything they can get, right? If Alvin Kamara is kind of on the bubble, well, they need a guy that's confident. Everyone's seen him in the playoffs. Hey, let's roll. And keep to your point with H.E. Perry, I'm going to jump down a little bit here. We talked about some defensive guys going to the offense a little bit with Jake Haener and H.E. Perry. H.E. Perry is a definite possessional receiver. I had in my notes, if you need a first down, throw that ball to H.E. Perry. When it comes to his speed, he's not a blazer like that, Jay. He's not going to really blow the top off, but he's going to be a great possession receiver. And the Saints are going to need that, right? With this new change of guard at the Saints, they're going to need people who are reliable. And, a guy like Jake Haener playing as backup, that's going to be great, right? Because you mentioned that Stetson Bennett piece. It's a trust thing, Drake. When you got a guy that came from your school, it's a trust factor. Therefore, your gameplay is going to go up. My question is, what's going to happen with Jameis, right? I mean, we're talking about the draft here. I know we're going to go to the Buccaneers here pretty soon as well. But former first-round pick overall, Heisman winner, and is now sliding and slipping a little bit, Jake. So I'm curious to see how things are going to shape up for him. But it just seems like going back to this draft piece that they've put pieces around these quarterbacks to make them successful in a wide receiver, in the tackle, and in a running back. So I'm curious, Jake, but what are your thoughts about Jameis? Because I don't think we can pass by here without talking about our guy Jameis.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I've been somebody kind of banging the table for Jameis Winston. I don't know if he's gotten the most fair shake in New Orleans. I feel like something was promised, and it just whatever. I don't really know what to say as far as that. Just didn't work out. But all in all, I think when you look and keep in mind, Taysom Hill still throws the ball every now and then. So how is this offense going to look? Is this going more traditional now? I mean, now that Sean Payton is not coming back, he is now in Denver. Is that Sean Payton aura with the you gotta use Taysom Hill this way? Is that gone? Are they just going to use him as a tight end now? Probably not, right? Because they have a weapon, and you sang his praises one time. We talked about Taysom Hill. You're like, man, that guy was the personal protector. That guy is the he
Gunner,
just does it all.
He can do it all.
Yeah, so he's just a football player. I mean, you hear that term a lot, and that is probably the most overused term. And it's probably the sign that, after you just reached on a player, he's just a football player. All right. So you gave me no reason as to why you picked him. You're just like, yeah, he's a football player. I didn't get that. I mean, I thought the NFL draft, for the National Football League, I didn't know you picked football players, but no, in all honesty though, I mean, Taysom Hill really is. He's a positionless player that can play all the positions they ask him to. So I think when you go back to Jameis though, it's going to create a nice little battle in camp because Jameis is fighting for his career right now because I don't think he wants to be a backup, but I don't think he really has a choice. I mean, that's the thing. So here's my advice for Jameis. Not that he's going to take it, but you put your head down, you get to work, you push Jake Haener. If the cards fall and Jake Haener's not the guy, he's the guy they choose and you never had a shot, well, you go out there in preseason, you put tape out there. And this is a league where, I mean, we've seen it in a blink of an eye. Guy can go down with an injury. And Jameis Winston, whether you want to knock him or not, his 30 for 30 season, he still had 33 touchdowns, my guy. And I'll tell you right now, I'd rather have Jameis Winston under center if I just lost my starting quarterback than have a rookie quarterback that just has to be thrown in the fire and is not ready for that moment. And so I think that is the opportunity there. That's the ideal instance for Jameis being. I think right now he needs to, maybe his career has gone away from him being a starting quarterback in the NFL. Now he has to go into Andy Dalton mode. Like, how do I survive? And Andy Dalton's made a living just surviving in the league, being ready when needed, being a guy that learns the playbook, being a mercenary. The guy played a ton of time with the Bengals, and now I've lost track of how many teams he's been on. So, I mean, shout out to him though. He's kept himself ready and calm, cool, collected. Another guy like that, Teddy Bridgewater. Another guy like that, Jacoby Brissett. So, unfortunately, I think that, Jameis Winston may not have gotten that fair shake, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the fact of the matter is, realistically, Jameis is going to have to pivot into that type of journeyman, Johnny on the spot type of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jake, I feel like we can do a whole off the edge episode with how quarterbacks are surviving after, being at the top of the mountain, right? Like,
Yeah, we really could.
Baker Mayfield, we're about to talk about the Bucks next, but Baker Mayfield, he's trying to figure this stuff out, right? I mean, it's a full process. It's a full process. These guys are number one overall picks, right? And then now they're fighting to stay on a roster. Kyler Murray, depending on how his career pans out, what will that look like? So, it's like you said, hats off to these guys though, because they're fighting, they're trying to figure it out. And Jameis Winston's on 1 year deal. So Jake, how I see it, right? How I see it, Derek Carr is your starter through and through. He kicks things off a little bit. Training camp, preseason. You see Jameis a lot of the snaps. Like you said, see what he can do. Make sure you lower that number down. And when it comes to interceptions, and then Haener, he's your guy that just on game days he might not dress right. He might have the clipboard, but he's on the roster. He's ready to rock and roll. And then you're Taysom Hill. He's your third quarterback come game time. If you actually need a third quarterback to step in, he's the one to do it. And the reason why I think we're doubling down on this quarterback position so much, Jake, is we've seen it with the Rams. If you don't have a quarterback that can step in and win some football games, you're going to be in trouble. And so with Jameis being on that 1 year deal, he's a guy that can step in and win some football games. So I just going back to the draft, though, I think Haener, he's going to be in great hands with those guys, those veterans. So, I mean, hey, the Saints, like I said, overall, I'll give them a B. And yeah, let's see what they do in the NFC South.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with my B minus, Cam, and I'll just say this Jake Haener kid is real. Okay, when I watched him, I'm like, all right, you hear the word gamer. I'm not trying to sound cliche, but he's a gamer, right? Yeah. And you watch his tape against just anybody. UCLA I think stood out the most to me. Guy's in pain. Guy's playing through pain. He knows he needs to elevate his team, and that's what he does on tape. So he had a really good Senior Bowl. He's a guy that I think a lot of teams fell in love with throughout the draft process. It was a matter of, well, who's going to blink first? Like, who's going to take him? And the Saints are like, we're not even going to waste a breath. We're going to take him in the 4th round because we like him that much. And, there's some people saying, oh, you should have gone the 5th or the 6th. No, if you like a quarterback, you pick the quarterback. You don't beat around the bush, because quarterback's that position where you can't be like, oh, we'll just get the other guy, right? It's more of like like, this guy can end up being the face of my franchise, and I need to be careful, because if I go out and I get the wrong guy, then I'm going to lose my job if the guy that I got over him, right? Like, okay, he goes to my division rival and he kills it. Like, Brock Purdy could cost somebody a job. I'm not saying he's going to. He's Mr. Relevant. Everybody missed on him. The 49ers picked him with, the final pick in the draft. So it's not exactly like they hit on him. They got him at the very end, But, I mean, that's the thing, though, is like, you got to be careful. I think that's, when you look at it the way like mock drafts are like explained, people will be like, oh, I'll just get this quarterback. No. You need to love your quarterback that you're drafting, my guy, because that is a position that you can't just be like, I'm thinking I'll go with the second option today. No. You got to go with your guy.
Yeah,
it's
It's like a marriage, Jake. It's like a marriage, someone who has multiple partners in a marriage, right? But if you had a quarterback, the next one up, that's going to be your main. And so you can't have a main that's just not doing what main things do. And so, and like I said, I keep referring to the Rams, what they had to go through with Wolford and, just that whole process. Unfortunately, he was not able to win football games, for the Rams while Matthew Stafford was out. And they struggled. Jake, all last year we were struggling doing that Bleav in Rams podcast because they just didn't have viable quarterbacks to go and win. And Haener, you mentioned he's a gamer. So, hey, come on in and game, Jake. They need guys that can go in and play. And thankfully for the Saints, they got Taysom Hill to back them up and get them out of any type of trouble. So that's a great problem to have.
And I'll trust Jake Haener every day of the week with his mobility and just how he plays, I could trust him to run the scout team. So, now all of a sudden he's killing two birds with one stone. And I mean, the way the NFL is going, I think the direction is the league needs to set a precedent that you don't have three quarterbacks shouldn't count against your roster. Because at the end of the day, I think teams should be allowed to carry three into the day. They should be able to address three, and it shouldn't go against, the limit. Because I think it's a position that's very dangerous. It's a position where now all of a sudden, if I only carry two, I can't activate my third guy on the sidelines. Now I have to use my kicker or my punter or my wide receiver that played, quarterback in high school a little bit. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I want to see an adjustment to that. And I wonder if the Saints are one of the teams that were pushing for that, because that actually was pushed for and ultimately declined at the owners' meeting. So that's something to keep in mind. But